Hello and welcome again to the Voiro Podcast, Season 4, Episode 5, with me as always, Kavita Shenoy, founder and CEO of Voiro. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and happy end of this week. I know I keep sounding very relieved that it's Friday.
In startup land, every week's like 10 years.
But I want to be this, this higher order of being where I can say, what is a weekend? Like in Downton Abbey and,
Just make work your passion and you will never work a day in your life.
Exactly. But this Friday, the end of the week is such a relief. I don't know. It's just one of those things that we're conditioned to do.
I've made my peace with it. That's it. I love my weekends.
So are your weekends like holidays? I just read something saying that if you are very stressed out, treat your weekend like a holiday. So then you plan stuff and you do things and you kind of extend time by marking it.
I remember 2014 when we started the company, you used to go around to everybody and say, what's your weekend plan? And if people said, I don't have a plan, you didn't accept it.
You have to have a plan.
You have to have a plan.
Man, that
you
was a lot
have
of
to look
pressure.
forward to something. No, but everyone liked it. And I think we still work. I make plans every weekend.
Every weekend.
Every weekend. My weekend is broken into 4 quadrants.
Do you have an Excel sheet?
No Excel sheet. No Excel sheet.
Everybody
but
in
it's
the room
always
is
like I
currently,
have
like,
4
laughing.
slots in the weekend, but there has to be something. It cannot be.
Nice.
No way.
Yeah, because
Bangalore has also gotten very interesting. There's
Yeah.
so much to eat.
Yeah.
The food scene is exploding.
Speaking of eating, Netflix is taking their show's Chef and Nailed It and creating a pop-up in LA for 2 weeks where they're having all these chefs that come in who were on those shows to actually do a live
Oh, how
dining
nice.
experience.
How nice.
But what I wanted to say was Bangalore is way ahead of the curve. I mean, we don't have Netflix
We have
stars.
the conservatory.
Yeah. And they just finished a year.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
right?
And so the conservatory is in Shantinagar in Bangalore, and they invite all of these really famous chefs, and you can go and sit there, get a dining experience.
So this
by
is
them.
like a passion plug. They haven't paid us to
No,
promote
they
them.
haven't.
That's
Yeah, they
fantastic.
haven't. But I just thought that they should also get a shout out because what Netflix is doing something in LA,
I like it.
getting like
like it.
they're getting covered in like major publications, and we've been doing it for a year. Hello.
Sifa is in town this weekend.
Yeah, I saw that the
The
Thai
Thai
guy.
restaurant from Bombay.
Did you go when
from
you were in
Bangalore.
Bombay?
Of course.
Yeah, nice.
Of course. When I moved to Bombay, I crowdsourced a list of restaurants because everyone told me that the food scene was so great, and every weekend that was basically what we did.
Nice.
And we would take the train to wherever it was and
Go
eat.
try it. Yeah.
It was so good.
The sad part about the pandemic and why it feels like it was just one big mass of time is because we couldn't market with all of these tentpole things that you would do. In a year, you would have holidays, you would pack so many things into it. It wouldn't be a flat one thing only. So it just feels like this large mass of time that has been crunched into one day. Like every day was the same day. So it just didn't make a difference.
Yeah. But I think what it also brought about is a deeper relationship with content. I'm going to do something in every podcast episode going forward.
Which is,
I want to know what you're watching these days.
I have started watching The Crowded Room
Okay.
on Apple. And I'm embarrassed to say I've also started watching something on Netflix called Barracuda Queen.
Okay. I mean,
It's-
I'm a connoisseur of trashy content.
Yeah. And I also sort of researched on why I go to the same shows all over again. And I always have like half watch Friends or half watch Seinfeld because I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from content anxiety.
Yeah.
So
no,
I
but
don't want to.
that's actually very common. For
Yeah.
me, Friends, Seinfeld, The Office, these are my
Go-tos.
Okay, I'm not in the mood for anything else.
Just if even it plays.
This is my throw something on
correct.
list.
Correct.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
too.
So yeah, these are 2 things I'm watching.
What was the
Crowded
first
Room-
one again?
Crowded Room.
Crowded Room.
Yeah. I was watching, I'm also watching Foundation. I was watching Silo. I finished
you're watching many shows at the same time. You're like those people who read multiple books.
No, because they
at
all got
once.
over. The last thing he said to me got over.
Okay.
And then these episodes only drop once a week, which is great for me. So I can actually watch many shows at the same time. I don't have to binge. But my favorite show so far has been after Succession. Nothing can beat Succession. Let's keep that in a class of its own, like we all do. Was The Hard.
The Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Is The Hard or The Hard?
I don't know. I try both and
We'll see how it lands.
see how it lands. So I'm speaking to someone who's good, is a native Hindi speaker.
You heard her?
Yeah, try. I live in constant fear of mispronouncing something.
The Hard.
Yeah.
It's the the and the duh. That's it. That's my only
Yeah.
fear. The
But
the and the k.
spectacular,
Man,
spectacular
it was
show.
great. It was
Yeah.
great. In the beginning, I couldn't watch more than one episode at a time because it was too heavy for me. It was just too much. My brain could not process. But then towards the end, when they start getting a little deeper and trying to find the I'm going to give away the story for people who have not watched it.
Spoiler alert. Just
No, no,
jump
no.
past the next 30 seconds
No, no,
if
no.
you haven't watched it.
If the mystery starts to unravel, I was really hooked. I was watching it an entire night after that. I was like, I can't. I have to know how this whole thing
Yeah,
ends.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I am currently watching Welcome to Chippendales on Amazon Prime, and I cannot believe that I had not heard of Chippendales.
Like in real
No,
life, you didn't know what
I
Chippendale
didn't know
was?
and I found out yesterday that Jimmy didn't either. He thought I told him. I said he said it's in a cartoon,
Isn't it that cartoon?
like Ducktales or Tailspin, and I said no. Even if that's what
Yeah,
I
he
want,
couldn't understand why you were watching a show about Chippendale. He was just so confused.
Jimmy needs to get out more.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of all the content that we are watching, which I'm gonna actually like start doing every episode. This model, the binge model, which you said sometimes works, sometimes we just want one episode. Like Succession was one a week, and everyone talks about it, right? This model seems to have caused this stir in Hollywood with the writers' strike.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that you wanted to talk about.
Yep.
As a broader trust.
Yeah.
Problem.
So this we were so every time we start an episode, we try and figure out what do we talk about, and it's usually about what we've read during the week or what has been top of mind for everybody. But there seems to be a recurring theme of everybody's lack of trust in this $5 trillion industry from a total addressable market perspective, where everybody's struggling in different corners. And for over a month now, there has been a writer's strike in the US. And there have been a lot of side stories that have come out as well. One which has been people are not really moving fast enough on it because, well, from a consumer's perspective, there is so much content that is there right now. You might as well eat whatever's on your plate before ordering anything more. Also, the fact that reality shows are not really covered by the Writers Guild. So a lot of reality shows are being commissioned right now. And you know how all of us love a good reality show, right? Get onto an island and see who marries who or whatever else. But Writers Guild is basically trying to renew a contract with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television. So that's basically what it is. There's a contract that's signed every once in a while, and it gets renewed with new terms because obviously the industry is changing. It's a living document, and they get new terms and new contracts. And so everybody who is a part of this guild gets protected under those contractual rights in terms of payments and minimum wages and the way you're employed and the environment of employment and so on and so forth. And the crux of all of this is a lack of trust between the writers and the people who are actually commissioning the projects. And if you look at it very carefully, they are getting sidelined because people really believe that creative thought and new scripts can be created by AI, right? Or it can be written up by, say, a chat GPT. And so you as a human being, your ideas are therefore now commoditized, which we all know is not true because AI can actually develop stuff on what has already been done. It can make more episodes maybe and drag it along in permutations and combinations. But thinking of new ideas, I don't think that can happen as of now. What do you think about, what I just said?
The trust problem is something that's becoming more and more evident across our industry. Streaming as a business model itself and the relationship between content creators, the talent behind content like the writers, streaming platforms, advertisers, publishers. There's a trust problem everywhere. And what we're seeing is the industry kind of over-indexed on technology and ways of work to either sidestep or to work through these trust problems as opposed to addressing them. When I first started reading about the writer's strike, my mind went to many places. Obviously, these are writers who are the forces behind the content that we now consume. It's now part of our culture. Is what are you watching? What are you enjoying? What are you into these days? It's all tied to either content or music today. And initially, when I read it, my mind was thinking streaming platforms are slowly starting to disinvest in the volume of content that they are producing. And maybe people move to LA thinking that there is an infinite pool of work
That
coming
they
their
can
way,
get,
and
yeah.
that pipe or that tap is suddenly closing. It's like, when Uber first came to India, it was not the ride sharing model that the US had. It had to have a commercial driver's license, but immigrants from other parts of the country moved to urban centers thinking that Uber would be a source of infinite money, and then it stopped because the business model struggled. It seemed to be the same thing, but then I realized it's much deeper. And the writer's strike was, I've seen it being labeled as a Netflix strike,
Yeah.
because what they're saying is there's many facets to it. Yes, the volume of content has slowed down. Two, longevity of content today on streaming means that somebody's making money and not sharing it back, which is the lack of trust that they are trying to fight against. They want better contracts, they want more dividends. Also, the binge model. Make 10 episodes and just throw it on the platform, as opposed to earlier where there was a pilot and there were longer seasons, longer episodes, and apparently you could get 10 months of work with some level of certainty at any point in time, whereas right now that's just not the case. So how do you sign mortgages? How do you sign up for
do you
a
plan your
release? How do you plan your life
Yeah.
when you're now working month to month, right? And so there's a level of certainty that is gone because of the Netflix model. And so everyone's blaming Netflix for the binge model, which is now created and now kind of also pulled back.
Yeah. Like I appreciate the episodes dropping week on week, especially for very deep layered content where you want to be able to read stuff, think about it. Maybe maybe it's my age. I don't know, right? I don't have that kind of time to spend on an entire weekend, maybe once in a while. But then our episodes also today are like 1.5 hours long. They're no longer 26-minute episodes that you can just like finish and move on to the next. They're long, layered episodes with different characters and different subplots. And like when we were watching Succession, I remember you came back and told me, hey, Kara Swisher has her own HBO Succession
Yeah.
podcast. And that would be the one that we would listen to. And then we would read about what people thought about it. And then we would go to our no context memes. And it was just, it was an extravaganza of content around just one episode, right? We would come back, share jokes and share our insights and say, remember when he said that? Oh my God, I felt this. And I'm still feeling horrible about the scene between
X and Y.
Shiv and Tom.
Yeah.
For sure. Right. So anyway, from a writer's perspective, I think there's a lot of change coming up. And I think why they are holding off on signing this contract till they find an agreement is a good deal, because AI is definitely in our lives. Technology is definitely taking over the more menial jobs, right? So even writers who are starting off at a writer's table, who would complete a scene, who would be given an outline and say, go write it, could very well be replaced by some kind of AI tool. And that is that is favorable to a studio who's producing it. It saves them money. So what else how do you get new blood in? You're not going to get somebody raw and green behind the ears to sit and head a writer's table. They have to learn somewhere, right? So there is a balance that you need to come up with. And it's interesting that you spoke about this actually just being the Netflix strike, because Netflix seems to be in the news a lot for a lot of things that people are kind of sitting back and saying, I don't think that's cool, right? The other one was recently I was listening to The Town with Matthew Belloni, and he was talking about how Bela Bajaria went on stage and the topic was about how Netflix does not share enough data with their content creators. And so it always puts these content creators on a back foot while negotiating their contracts. And she kind of shirked the entire question and said, but we have our top 10 lists and we constantly put up our top 10 lists. And then there was this entire debate about the streaming company putting up a top 10 list within their own content is, you have to take it with a pinch of salt at the end of the day. Versus, say, a Nielsen who's a impartial third party. But it came down to the fact that should Netflix, and I want to know your opinion on this, right? Should Netflix be actually sharing the same amount of data to content creators that a YouTube does? YouTube, you were telling me the other day, YouTube Creator Studio is
supposed to be the gold standard. Should they? Yes, if they take a long view. And I think that's one of the things YouTube has always gotten right. YouTube's always been the gold standard for all things monetization, whether it's the model itself or the kind of data that they share with content creators. And I think that's also because they began as UGC, user generated content, which means they were a platform that could not exist, whereas a lot of the other streaming platforms are decidedly not UGC, which means today if they're moving closer to syndication as a model because they cannot keep producing their own content, because that, as we all know, is very, very expensive, then I think it's time for this industry to take a long view, because it's not that the data doesn't exist, but there's two shades of that data that don't exist. We were talking to a chief revenue officer at a streaming platform the other day who said, I come from the television world where, yes, everything was not addressable, but there was no lack of information. And sure, that information was based on panels, it was extrapolated, but there was a story. The digital world was all about infinite data, but I'm finding that there's a lot of data, but very little information.
And no story.
And no story.
Yeah, the so what does not exist, and
Doesn't
none of us
exist.
are on the same storyline at all.
Yeah. And there's a wall between that data and their stakeholders, whether that's content owners, even agencies, even advertisers. There's very little that trickles out of those doors. It's a walled garden in both directions. But I think if you took a long view and shed the fear and realize that if you build a partnership, any partnership in history is based on trust.
Yep.
If you take a 30-year view, if you take a 50-year view right now, then you'd want to share that data. But there's so much fear that if I share this data, they won't come back.
Or they'll hold me to hostage, or they'll go to somebody else.
Yeah. Or they will realize what I am and what I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe my reach is inflated. Maybe my reach is not enough for them to partner. I don't know. I don't know what... there's a lot of fear that comes with...
A lot of humanness that comes into...
But that's what's coming through.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas with YouTube, it's never been the case because they started with user-generated content and
and
always had to...
Yeah, if the content creator did well, YouTube did well.
Yeah.
And YouTube wasn't bankrolling any of this content in terms of creation because it was all UGC.
In fact, YouTube originals did not do well.
Yeah, they shut it down last year. Yeah, that's true. And then the other side of this entire coin is subscriptions versus advertising, video on demand, or advertising-led monetization strategies. And here there has been this constant struggle between advertisers and publishers for advertisers to be able to access publisher data, and publishers trying to give standardized information across advertisers so that they can scale their operations, because it is difficult at the end of the day for you to give access to all types of data that an advertiser wants. And again, it comes back to that statement that one of our, one of the CROs told us. Where's the story? Yes, there's addressability. The so what is still not there. And why is everybody looking at different types of information? Why are we not looking at the same information?
Yeah.
And
yeah, but look at the sequence of company types, I want to say, right? Advertisers want to tell publishers, hey, you're nothing without me and my money. But that doesn't come back. Publishers recently had the same problem with Google, where, in Australia, Sundar Pichai had to personally go down there and sort this out. But I forget the specifics. But effectively, for news, right? Google saying, I'm bringing you traffic, and publishers saying, without my content, you have no traffic to begin with.
You got to pay me for it.
This is a trust problem. This is a relationship problem.
Correct. Because you're making money off my content.
Yeah.
Right? So
Reddit. Reddit's in the news this week because they have an app that stinks. But there are third-party apps that use Reddit APIs and that have monetization baked in, that have always used Reddit's APIs for free. And now Reddit's saying, I'm going to charge you for this API within the next 30 days, and this massive strike. It's the same thing. Reddit is saying, you have nothing without me, and these products are saying, well, because of our apps, your traffic is where it is.
Yeah.
It's a trust problem.
It's a trust problem, and it's also a place where people are not starting off on the right foot. There's enough money. It's a $5 trillion TAM. There is enough money to go around for generations, right? All you have to do is organize yourself and operate on a base of trust. And like you say, take the long view. Otherwise, everything is going to be for tomorrow. But conversely, and this is something that I listened to in another meeting I went to, where this person, they were talking about whether or not they wanted to build versus buy and decision-making capabilities. And he says, I mean, why are you guys taking so long on this? It's not like you and I are going to be in this company forever, right? And it just struck me, yes, they are not going to be in this company forever. So they're going to serve whatever they have to serve to their interests.
Yeah.
at this point in time. So they're going to make decisions for the present, which now puts a lot of pressure on the board of these organizations, right? Which I don't know what's happening in any of the boards in India, quite frankly, but in the boards for all of these entertainment companies, they are very well staffed. They have people who really take the long view. So I think they will start stepping in, and they need to start looking at it differently instead of letting this kind of skirmish run out and distract people over the larger things.
You know,
So from advertisers to publishers, the next tranche of mistrust, distrust, and chaos is between advertisers and consumers,
Yeah.
right? And the whole tussle between personally identified information, the ability for you to call me, do not disturb lists, right? I don't want to give you my email ID. Yesterday we got into a fight with a nearby restaurant because they wanted us to give us our email ID and our cell phone number to make an order, right? To get
Yeah.
our beers. It was ridiculous. We behaved really badly, I know, and it was.
no.
I mean, it was a pub for very young people who didn't care about a lot of these things. Or I always thought the younger generation actually cared more about this. So I'm very confused by. I hate QR code restaurant menus to begin.
I'm okay with QR codes.
I don't like it.
But I just don't like giving my information to sit at a restaurant.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
paying you. I'm paying you good money to drink your beer. Why do you need my number?
yeah, they want your number, they want your name, they want your date of birth.
Yeah.
So you can join the Coco Kitchen Club.
Why? I don't want to be part of this kitchen club.
I just want a beer. And here's money in exchange.
Correct.
That's the value exchange.
Yes.
Somewhere in there, your personal information has tried to become a part of the value exchange. But you'd be surprised how many people just give it.
I mean,
You
I
go
do
to a
too.
restaurant and say, what's your number? And they give it.
Yeah, I do that. I do it with the coffee guy.
I give Jimmy's number.
Yeah. Every day when I go for my coffee to Third Wave, they ask me for my number, and I'm like, you should know my number by heart now. It just
I say you should know by now that I won't give it.
yeah, but this whole conundrum between advertisers and consumers and understanding personally
Yeah.
identifiable information is also mired with a lot of regulation, right?
Yeah, but before that, it's still a trust problem. Regulation's trying to solve it from a different angle, but I think it's also a trust problem that's tied to misuse.
Yes,
right?
and the constant display of misuse.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're calling out the conservatory in a positive light, I'll tell you negative experiences. Like yesterday's with Coco's Kitchen, it's a nice bar. You don't need all my personal information. I bought a mattress from WakeFit, and they have contacted me 200 times
For what?
since then. Various times on WhatsApp, on text, on email.
You bought the
through
mattress.
calls.
Now what?
They've just contacted me with marketing junk 200 times. I've said stop, I've unsubscribed, I've written to them personally and told them that this is a bad experience. It doesn't stop them. This is what creates mistrust. I bought a mattress, I paid you money. You want feedback? That's one touch point. But I'm not even kidding. I went and tallied it 200 times.
Wow.
200 times.
So you're in some database floating around saying has bought mattress.
Has bought mattress from Wake. No, but I'm not hearing from other companies. I'm hearing from WakeFit themselves.
So they haven't really fulfilled you and you haven't checked out.
There's nothing in my cart. Nothing. I bought it.
Damn.
But this is misuse that results in mistrust.
Yeah, mistrust. And frustration, right?
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to contact me anymore.
And we are a provider, a creator of technology in the advertising ecosystem. We understand advertising. We understand frequency caps. We understand consent. So it's not like I hate ads,
Yeah.
right? But this is still
It's violating.
abusive.
Yeah, this is abusive for sure. For sure. So when you speak of all this, then obviously there is a need for regulation.
Yeah.
Right. There's a need
We were
for
at the
recourse.
CTV Asia Symposium, and the WakeFit CMO was on stage. I had half a mind to go and talk to
You
him.
should have said, hey man, what's your entire strategy like? What are you doing with all your data? Yeah. Yeah. But to circle back on the whole regulation front, because of all this, especially with the consumer side, where there is no actual recourse that you can take, right? Between writers and studios, there is a contract. Between advertisers and publishers, there is a contract. Between advertisers and consumers, there is no contract. So the people who need to be protected would probably fall back on some kind of regulation. And that's where the government steps in. And our dear first world countries have already taken the step ahead with GDPR, which is now going through its own life cycle of chaos. And have now also come up with the AI Act. Right? They've acted really fast and come up with the AI Act, But it is necessary, right? We all may sort of roll our eyes and say, oh my God. But India has done nothing for PDPA. We read about PDPA in 2021, right? We're in 2023. There was a lot of uproar. There was the need for people to contribute. We read the entire act, page to page. It was like GDPR, but it lacked any kind of recourse. Like, what do you do? What is the punishment? What is the what is the steps? What are the steps I need to take if I want to file a case, right? So all of these things were not yet fleshed out, and now it's just not around. There was some coverage on it, and there is no coverage on it now.
Yeah,
Absolutely none.
I think governments can only play catch up.
Yeah.
Like there was a Supreme Court hearing about Google recently, and one of the US Supreme Court judges said this group of 9 Supreme Court justices is not qualified to rule on something like this. I think governments can only play catch up, but I think it's more important. There's a company which is a very good friend of ours called Achilles, and the founder Gautaman always says the only way to be relevant in the future is to figure out what it means to be privacy compliant, and then make sure your technology works in that fashion. Because clearly a slap on the wrist to a Facebook, even if it's 5 billion, 10 billion, doesn't make a difference to them. The only thing that makes a difference to them is if consumers punish them with their time, their attention, and their money. It's the only thing that works.
Agreed. Very well said.
And I think policy will come and go. People will flout it and pay their fines. Policy will be irrelevant because technology is moving so fast.
Which makes policy necessarily needing to be a living document.
Yes.
It cannot be something that's an open and shut
Like a business
thing.
plan.
Like a business plan. Yeah, like a business plan. It has to be a living document because especially with GDPR and AI, things are changing. And if you read the synopsis of the AI Act, and we'll link this website in the show notes. It's a website that's tracking all of what's happening on the AI Act. And they have like this cool presentation that they've put up. It's a pyramid of needs, right? Where the AI Act really needs, there's a necessary action for it, and where there's nothing needed. And there's some commonsensical things that the Act wants them to do. If I'm talking to a bot, if I'm talking to something that's AI driven, for it to declare that I'm not a human being, I'm actually a bot, and so then whatever you're saying to me, you probably temper, right? And the need for a lot more scrutiny in the medical field and things that are way out there in for our health and our safety. And something that they've outright banned is social scoring that the Chinese government does. So there is a lot of there's a lot of good stuff that's coming about in regulation, but like you say, at the end of the day, the power lies in people. No amount of regulation can actually force companies to do things differently unless their audiences punish them with lack of time, lack of engagement, and actually shirk them until they fall into line. But it doesn't take away from the fact that businesses have to be run, and that from an advertising perspective, things are going to change. So coming up in 2024 Q1, which is January, Google is going to start deprecating 1% of their third-party cookies.
Yeah.
I
think it'll happen before that.
Yeah. I don't know what that means. Like, who forms the 1%? How do they qualify for that 1%?
No, I think we've seen our customers move back-end technologies like ad servers, right? And it's random. You move a small percentage and then see if it works, and then you move from there. I think it'll be random.
It'll be random.
I think it'll be random. But the whole point is to just A/B test it and see if it's working. But what it means is that they're pulling the trigger on this.
Yeah.
Finally.
And when you're saying testing, I think all our publishers should definitely now.
This is the clock starting.
Yeah, it's ticking. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Because everyone assumes that Google will not figure this out.
Yeah. It's taken like 3 years for them to get to this statement.
Yeah.
But overall, the concept of making sure that as a publisher, you are able to understand your first party data, organize it. And, last time we had a webinar, we had Deepti on it, and she said, contrary to belief, most of digital natives today, most of the companies who are born in the cloud, who are new, already have deep access to their customers because everybody logs in, people are leaving their numbers, checking out, a bunch of stuff. But old CPG companies, FMCG companies, tech companies that are really old may not have that kind of access to data. I remember when Facebook launched their entire advertising
Yeah.
capabilities, they said you are going to be targeting people, right? Actual people, because we had given everything down to our like kids' date of births, our relationships with people. He is my sibling, she is my cousin, that's my grandmother. We had made family trees on Facebook, so now they could figure out exactly who we are, where we live, down to our zip code, and so it was such a big differentiator for them in terms of advertising, and it was so effective that they were able to turn an election. But the point is that as publishers, there has never been a greater turning point in the history of publishers being around. You get to own and operate your first party data. And so it would be foolish not to get your ducks in a row and get your strategy in a row. There are many, many tools that are out there. We met Snowflake the other day, and they were pioneers in the data clean rooms aspect and making it simple for people to use tools to build DCRs. And from what they told us, media companies in the US were the first to jump onto that bandwagon. So it's no longer rocket science to be able to handle your first party data. And of course, your second party data strategy, which is to make sure that you are able to sign contracts with complementary interest-based companies for you to start sharing and enriching your own data. But yeah, so there is a lot that's happening in the publisher ecosystem that is going to go into a crescendo in the next 6 months, and hopefully advertising also will come back on track. I know we're a bit of a lull from a spend perspective, but lots to come.
Yeah. No, I like how you put it. Publishers are in a position where they can have a lot of power right now. Strategically making sure that they set themselves up for it is going to be key.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I hope like all the consultants that are listening to this actually are running back to their publishers and sort of bearing down, because this is a good place for publishers to be. And it's a good thing for consumers as well, because at least people, apart from what you experience from WakeFit, let's hope it doesn't happen. But, to be
No
able
more mattresses from WakeFit. I'm going somewhere else.
consumers to actually make sure that they are getting the right kind of experience from their brands. Anyway, so the other day you were talking about AI, right? And talking about Sam Altman's visit to India.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
I was wondering why he was in India. That's the one thing that I still don't have a clue. Like, why is he here?
You came up with a hypothesis.
Yeah, which is, in my opinion, of all the large markets in the world, if he needs to get friendly policies between Russia, China, India, he has to start doing the rounds. And I'm sure the Microsoft PR engine said,
That is the shoe, the next shoe that had to drop. It is the Microsoft way of working, right? Making sure that you're...
Yeah, Microsoft's always been huge
Yeah.
in India. But there was this famous exchange between him and Rajan Anandan of Google and Sequoia, where he said, can a team of 3 bright engineers with maybe not $100 million, $10 million of funding build something significant in foundational AI? And he said, if you think you can go up against us, I think that would be hopeless, but I think you should try. I think you should try anyway, and I think both those statements are right. And of course, we are a country where one of our national pastimes is to get offended, and many people got offended.
Yeah.
And,
Was that answer to that question at all, or was it just a statement?
No, it was an answer to that
Yeah,
question.
you think
and I
so?
think it makes sense. And now Sam's had to dial it back and said, oh no, I meant you can't do it with 10 million. You can do it more. Which is actually, I think he's also like covering
His
covering
ass.
up. Yeah, but I think the original spirit of the answer, and Rajan took it well. He smiled because it's part hubris, also part how every founder should be. You have to have the audacity to take on a problem that everyone thinks it's hard, and that's the only way you will create something earth-shattering. And that's how every founder is supposed to be, right? So do you think you can compete with me? No, it's hopeless. And if I'm a founder and I think otherwise, then I should not be in this seat. But should you try it anyway? Yes. Because you are a founder and you're supposed to go against convention.
Correct.
Spectacular.
And both statements are true.
That's exactly what he said. He said both statements are true.
Yeah.
And he specifically said foundational AI. You can build applications and do a great job, and that can be shipped to the entire world.
So if you had to decode that aspect of foundational AI, do you think it's because OpenAI has covered so much ground that it would take so much time to unnecessarily redo something that's already
so
been
much
done?
Ground, trained on so much data, backed with a lot of capital, already in touch with the greatest possible abstraction layer in the world, which is the Microsoft ecosystem of products. including ChatGPT, which is a product of its own. I think it's just that they've run very far ahead. But like he said, it never say never is also a founder attitude.
Yeah.
That's what makes it hard to be a founder. But I think his statement was very beautifully put, and he answered it in a second. He didn't have to think. It's just our national pastime is to get offended. I think it's very unfortunate.
Well, anyway, so that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the fact that we try to break down the concept of the eroding trust in the entire industry, and that we all need to make sure that we are playing our parts as consumers, publishers, advertisers, regulators, writers, content creators, to bring together the basis of why we do business with each other, right? It is trust at the end of the day. And I think that needs to be put front and center for whatever conversation you have. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you.
To
Well
everybody.
said, Kavita. Well said. Thank you so much.
Bye.